The most profound learning in my life came as a result of meeting my biological mother. This event was a catalyst for a change in the way I viewed myself and others. Somehow I internalized the idea that you do what you're good at and you don't do what you're not good at. For example, my friend Amber was always a runner. She ran and I did not. Once I began to realize that she was a runner because she ran and that I too could run and be a runner, it was like a light switched on. The culmination of this learning was in 2016 when we ran the Marine Corps Marathon together, a first marathon for each of us. As a result of this realization, I started to do things that weren't necessarily my thing. By exploring the new, I was not making a declaration that I thought I was good, but rather that I was interested in something. I have since dabbled in MOOCs, such as Dr. Chuck Severance's Python for Everyone, HTML, and CSS. I have taken up golf. The very language used to describe golf demonstrates a growth mindset. The golf game is the set of skills you work on all your life, whereas a round of golf is simply one outing. I am now working on my game in a number of arenas. One missed opportunity as a result of my fixed mindset was not pursuing studies with Dr. Rebecca Bigler at UT Austin. Her class, Gender and Racial Attitudes, was my greatest success in school as a student. These studies grabbed me like nothing before or since. One study that we read about was one in which two groups of Asian girls take a math test. One group was primed to check the box indicating their gender prior to the test, whereas the other group checked a box to indicate their race. The results were that the Asians outperformed the girls. The group that triggered a positive stereotype about themselves outperformed the one that triggered a negative one in a phenomenon known as stereotype threat. What could be more interesting or fascinating? Dr. Bigler gave me the greatest compliment of my academic life, or so I thought at the time, when she told me that I was too smart to be a teacher. Rather than take this compliment as a push to continue studying in that field, I continued doing the next thing in front of me. This statement became an absurdity as I spent the next decade or more struggling to become just a teacher. Teaching has been the hardest thing I have ever done. On September 11, 2001, I was a substitute teacher in a first grade classroom while the teacher was on maternity leave. The next week, I obtained my first permanent teaching job at my former high school, Ball High School in Galveston, Texas, as the Spanish teacher they'd hired had a nervous breakdown and walked out one day. In addition to the national fear we all experienced, there was a lot of violence in my hometown. 15% of my female 9th grade students became pregnant, already had a baby, or had an abortion during that single school year. People were so poor that every time I saw them on the block schedule, they would be wearing the same shirt, rotating between the only two they owned. People never crossed the causeway to the mainland, or never rode in cars. With no practical experience and no theoretical background, I was left to draw on my own experiences as a student to guide me in how to teach. I attended the same school, yet my experience was completely different. Had it been like that at Ball High all along? What I had going for me was that I had history there. I had students my mother had taught in the 3rd grade, kids whose grandfathers played softball with my dad, kids who knew my recently graduated brother. I wanted so badly to do a good job, but I had no idea what I was doing. I was in the unconscious incompetence phase of Noel Birch's 4 stages of competency, and I was free to fearlessly try anything. My teaching certificate was harder to obtain than my undergraduate degree. I spent a couple of years in the conscious incompetence stage, quite uncomfortable now knowing what I was up against. A stroke of good fortune brought me to Stratford High School in Houston, Texas, and the place became my home and made me the teacher I am today. What Stratford had that made me successful were a group of mentors that were like other mothers to me, very detailed team planning sessions in which we scripted lesson plans and made materials together, and a ton of meaningful professional development opportunities, such as attending conferences at the national, state, and local levels. Using the tools gained at Stratford, I moved into the phases of conscious competence and unconscious competence. During this magical time at Stratford, through Spring Branch ISD's World Language Office, I heard about a master's degree in Salamanca, Spain, designed for Spanish teachers. In a couple of years' time, I had gone from struggling to pass the Texas Oral Proficiency Test in order to get certified to teach, to now being able to move amongst native Spanish speakers from many different countries. Stratford nurtured and trusted me. In January of 2009, the principal gave me permission to be absent in order to attend President Obama's first inauguration. Two of my best friends from Galveston lived in DC and invited me to stay with them. During this euphoric celebration, I met my now husband. I left my family and friends in Texas and moved to DC about a year later. We now have a son who will turn 3 in October. And in all sincerity, I want to say, thanks, Obama.